So in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about flipping and pitching. It's one of my absolute favorite techniques to use really all year long. I've had a ton of success, obviously in the warmer months, but also in the cooler months as well, going down a bank and flipping different pieces of cover with a creature bait or a jig. Now, the one thing that a lot of people don't really, I think, understand or maybe recognize is that you don't just have to use a creature or crawl style bait while you're flipping. There are other styles of baits that, in my experience, can get way more bites in the same situations that you would flip a creature bait, but you just got to kind of mix it up. And so today we're going to talk about two of my favorite bait styles to throw while flipping and pitching that aren't a creature or a crawl style bait. So the first one is going to be a big worm. Now, when I say a big worm, I'm talking a big worm, something like a 12-inch ribbon tail worm and or like a 6 to 8-inch straight tail worm. I have had a ton of success flipping these in brush piles and in lay downs around boat docks, and just essentially throwing it in the same exact place I would throw that jig or that creature bait that I would normally be flipping, but instead you flip the big worm. It's kind of crazy too, because a lot of people think, man, a 12-inch worm, it's only going to be a giant bass that eats it. But when in fact, I've caught a lot of bass between like 2 and 3 pounds on this thing, and the big ones eat it as well. But it is just such a super effective bait around shallow water fish. And I think oftentimes, when you're throwing something this big or pitching or flipping something this big, you can have somebody go up the bank in front of you with a jig or a creature bait, and the bass have seen 10,000 of them. They've been presented with the same size, same weight, same everything 10,000 times, and they're not going to eat it because they've seen it so many times. Whereas if you throw in something big like one of these worms, I think it's just something completely different. It's big, it disturbs a lot more water. It's something worth those bass's time, and you can get them to react to this thing where they would quit reacting to jigs and creature baits while you're flipping and pitching. Another thing that you can do with this while you're flipping and pitching is, once you get it in there, say that you've jigged it up and down a couple of times, and before you pull it out, just start dragging it really slow, and you can fish this thing on the bottom like a big ribbon tail worm. And so many times it's been crazy where I've pulled it out in front of the brush pile, and then that's where I get the bite. Even with somebody flipping a creature bait behind me not doing the same thing, I was able to recover water with the worm and catch fish that they didn't. So keep that one in your arsenal, flipping a really big worm for bass around cover and stuff like that. The next one is going to be even another bait that a lot of people, I think it's like, I don't know if it's old school, it's kind of like the spinner bait. Like, so many people forgot about the spinner bait, and it's starting to kind of make a rise back, but a lizard. I mean, I absolutely love a lizard, whether I'm Texas rigging and dragging it, Carolina rigging it, whatever. But when I'm flipping and pitching, especially a lizard, especially a big lizard like your 4 to 6 inch lizards with the big ribbon tails on the back, will absolutely smash bass, especially in the same situations with the worm where you've got 10,000 people out there on the lake that are all flipping the same type of creature bait. You can come in with something like a lizard and absolutely wreck them. And I'll tell you another little tip that I'll give you guys on flipping the big baits and the big pieces of plastic is use really strange colors. Like, this is obviously a green pumpkin with some red flake. I've showed you another green pumpkin in a plum. Plum's kind of a deep, worm color. But one of my favorite ones was a Strike King bait called the bull worm. And the bull worm came in a color called Prism Shad. It was this like bluish color. And then I also had a Morning Dawn. And I've actually got some Morning Dawn 8-inch worms in there. And those really strange colors did a really good job of getting a lot of bites. And I think the Prism Shad looked like maybe a big gizzard shad, and the bass were just reacting to it because it looked like a dying gizzard shad. I'm not completely sure, but it's just my experience. And I'll tell you something else that I think these big ribbon tail worms do a really good job of imitating are lampreys. It's something that a lot of bass don't realize bass eat, but around here we have a lot of lampreys, and I've literally been reeling in a bass with a lamprey hanging off of its side and seen an even bigger bass eat that lamprey off of that fish's side. It's absolutely crazy, and so many times I'll go to boat flip a fish and a lamprey, they'll spit up a lamprey, puke up a lamprey. It's just absolutely incredible to see. So just keep in mind, big worm, big lizard next time you're out there on the lake flipping, and click this video popping right up here if you want to see the big worm in action.